Welcome back to the channel, basketball fans. Today, we are diving deep into what is undoubtedly the most critical, earth-shattering, and defining storyline in Philippine basketball right now. We are talking about the staggering news that sent absolute shockwaves across the entire archipelago, through the streets of Manila, and all the way across the Pacific to the international basketball community. I am, of course, talking about the devastating injury to our very own 7'3" prodigy, the undisputed future and present of Gilas Pilipinas, Sotto. This is a moment that has forced every single fan, analyst, and armchair coach to completely stop in their tracks and ask one terrifying question. What happens to the national team now? But today, we are not just going to read you the headlines. We are going to rip the cover off this story and expose the absolute, undeniable truth behind what really happened. We are going to uncover the real cause of Sotto's injury. Because let me tell you right now, it is not just what you saw on the surface. It was not just an awkward landing or a simple freak accident on the hardwood during a random game in the Japan B League. The truth is far more complex, far more systemic, and deeply rooted in the agonizing, grueling realities of modern, high-stakes international basketball. And if that is not enough to keep you glued to your seat, we have the ultimate follow-up that has had the local sports forums crashing for days. We are going to break down, in granular detail, the brilliant, calculated, and frankly, completely unapologetic masterstroke by Gilas Pilipinas head coach Tim Cone. While the entire country was hitting the panic button, begging the Basketball Federation to scour the globe, to open up the national pool, to bring in 18, 19, or 20 different players to try and fill the colossal void left by our primary center, Coach Tim Cone did what he does best. He stayed absolutely ice-cold. He looked at the hysteria, shut out the noise, and officially declared his replacement for Sotto. He already has his man. He has a definitive plan, and it is a plan that proves exactly why he is the winningest coach in the history of Philippine basketball. Before we transition into the deep dive, we need to set the stage and truly understand the sheer magnitude of this breaking news. To fully grasp the gravity of this situation, you have to understand what Sotto represents to the Philippines. For decades, the national team has been defined by our relentless heart, our unmatched speed, our deadly outside shooting, and our puso mentality. But we always had one glaring, inescapable kryptonite: elite, world-class size. We have spent generations naturalizing players, searching for anyone who could legitimately stand toe-to-toe with the towering giants of Australia, the massive frontcourts of New Zealand, and the elite rim protectors of European and global powerhouses. And then, along came Sotto. A homegrown, 7'3" unicorn with a soft touch, a high basketball IQ, and the ability to alter shots without fouling. He was not just a player. He was the ultimate equalizer. Under Tim Cone's meticulously crafted system, had blossomed into an absolute terror. We are talking about a player who was averaging a monstrous 15.5 points and 12.5 rebounds in the qualifiers. He was the anchor of the defense, the primary target in the half-court set, and the absolute centerpiece of the Gilas Olympic and World Cup dreams. So, when the news broke that Sotto went down during his stint with the Kashigaya Alphas against the Seahorses Mikawa, the collective heartbeat of the nation skipped. The visual of him trying to execute a post move against Zach Auguste, only to have his left knee buckle, was a nightmare scenario playing out in real time. He was subbed out just minutes into the first quarter and did not return. And later, the dreaded confirmation came down: a torn anterior cruciate ligament. A torn ACL. 3 letters that strike pure fear into the hearts of any athlete and any fan. Suddenly, the anchor was gone. The paint was left completely unguarded. The future windows of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers and the preparations for the 2027 FIBA Basketball World Cup felt dangerously compromised. The immediate aftermath was sheer pandemonium. Social media platforms erupted. Calls for drastic measures flooded in. People were demanding that the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas launch an emergency, nationwide, and international scouting mission. Fans were throwing out names left and right, demanding that the sacred 14-man pool that Coach Tim Cone had so carefully curated be ripped open and expanded. They wanted new blood, they wanted massive tryouts, they wanted a complete overhaul of the roster to compensate for the loss of a 7'3" giant. But in the midst of this absolute chaos, Coach Tim Cone stood firm. He emerged from the silence with a statement that was as bold as it was comforting. He unequivocally shut down the idea of a massive roster expansion. He reminded everyone that the preparation windows for international tournaments are incredibly short, often just a matter of days, and you simply cannot teach a complex defensive and offensive philosophy to a revolving door of 20 different players in a week. Instead, he pointed to the roster he already built. He pointed to the contingency plan he had installed from day one. He announced that the replacement for Sotto was already wearing the Gilas Pilipinas training gear. Coach Tim Cone looked to his veteran enforcer, the high-flying, vastly experienced Japath Aguilar, as the primary man to step into the breach. And behind him, the young, burly, sharpshooting Mason Amos, standing ready to fortify the front court. It was a declaration of absolute trust in his system and his players. It was Coach Cone saying that while we cannot replace Sotto's exact height, we can replace his production through collective experience, flawless execution, and tactical adjustments. This is the hook, ladies and gentlemen. This is the precipice we are standing on. We have a generational talent sidelined by a devastating, physically traumatic injury caused by factors most people are completely overlooking, and we have a legendary coach refusing to panic, betting everything on his chosen veterans to carry the weight of a nation. Now, let us pull back the curtain. Let us get into the exact biomechanics, the scheduling nightmares, the hidden fatigue, and the absolute strategic brilliance of the Gilas Pilipinas master plan. It is time for the deep dive. Let us begin this deep dive by dissecting the first massive revelation, the real cause of Sotto's injury. When you watch the replay of that fateful game in the Japan B League, it is easy to dismiss it as just a bad step. He makes a move in the post, his foot plants, the knee buckles, and he goes down. But if you talk to elite sports science professionals, physiotherapists, and strength and conditioning coaches who work with athletes of this extreme size, they will tell you that an ACL tear in a non-contact or low-contact situation is rarely just a freak accident of that specific second. It is almost always the final, dramatic failure in a long, silent chain of physiological fatigue and biomechanical stress. The real cause of Sotto's injury is the crushing, unsustainable reality of his schedule and the unique physical demands placed on a 7'3" frame playing year-round, high-intensity, global basketball. Think about the sheer volume of basketball this young man has been playing. Over the past few years, Sotto has been on a relentless, globe-trotting mission to elevate his game and represent his country. He has bounced from the NBA G League Ignite program, to the Australian National Basketball League, to various summer league stints, and now, the grueling grind of the Japan B League. The B League is notoriously physical. It is a fast-paced, highly demanding league where imports and Asian quota players are expected to carry massive loads on both ends of the floor. They play a heavy slate of games, often with back-to-backs on weekends, requiring immense physical output and minimal recovery time. But that is only half the story. Layered on top of his professional club commitments is his absolute, unwavering dedication to Gilas Pilipinas. Every time the national team calls, Sotto answers. This means that during the incredibly brief FIBA international windows, while his club teammates might be getting a rare few days of rest to recover their battered bodies, is boarding long-haul international flights. He is dealing with massive time zone changes, jet lag, altered sleep schedules, and sudden changes in diet and training environments. He flies into Manila or wherever the tournament is being held, immediately jumps into highly intensive, high-stakes training camps under Tim Cone, and then plays in hyper-competitive, emotionally charged international matches where he is heavily targeted by opposing defenses. For an athlete who stands 7 feet, 3 inches tall, this constant transition is incredibly taxing. The human body, especially one of that immense proportion, is subjected to phenomenal torque and shear forces on the lower extremities with every jump, every hard plant, and every lateral slide. The knees, the ankles, and the hips bear the brunt of gravity and momentum. When you deprive a body of adequate, deep restorative rest, you begin to experience micro-traumas in the ligaments and tendons. The muscles surrounding the knee, specifically the quadriceps and hamstrings which act as the shock absorbers and stabilizers for the ACL, become fatigued. When those muscles are exhausted from back-to-back B League games, followed by a frantic flight to a FIBA window, followed by more games, they stop firing at optimal speeds. They lose their ability to properly absorb force. And when that happens, all of the kinetic energy from a simple post move, a simple plant of the foot, is transferred directly into the ligament. The ligament, unable to handle the load alone, simply gives way. That is the real cause. It was an accumulation of miles, an accumulation of fatigue, and the heavy price of carrying the hopes of both a professional franchise and an entire nation without a sustained off-season. This brings us to the crucial pivot in our analysis. Coach Tim Cone knows this. The medical staff knows this. And this is exactly why Tim Cohn has explicitly stated that they are taking the long-term view with Kai Sotto. He recently mentioned that he wants Kai playing for the national team until he is 35 years old. That statement right there is a massive paradigm shift. In the past, there might have been immense pressure to rush a player back, to tape him up, inject him with painkillers, and throw him back out there for the sake of one tournament. But Cohn is protecting his ultimate asset. He has made it clear that there is absolutely no rush to bring him back for the upcoming immediate windows. They are going to let the surgery heal, let the rehabilitation process take its full, unhurried course, and ensure that the foundational strength is rebuilt from the ground up so this does not become a recurring nightmare. But the games do not stop. The FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers continue. The road to the 2027 FIBA Basketball World Cup marches on. And Gilas Pilipinas has to step onto the floor against massive, physical teams like New Zealand and Australia without their 7'3" shield. This is where we analyze the second major headline, the replacement. When Tim Cohn firmly rejected the idea of expanding the 14-man pool to bring in new, untested big men, he was relying on a coaching philosophy that has won him dozens of championships in the PBA. Tim Cohn does not believe in collecting talent. He believes in building teams. He operates a highly sophisticated system, deeply rooted in the principles of the triangle offense, adapted for the modern, fast-paced international game. This system requires supreme chemistry, impeccable spacing, instantaneous read-and-react decision-making, and an innate understanding of where every teammate is on the floor at any given millisecond. You cannot pull a 7-foot center from the local leagues, or fly in a promising college prospect from the United States, give them 3 days of practice, and expect them to execute this flawlessly against the disciplined, brutal execution of the Australian Boomers or the New Zealand Tall Blacks. A missed defensive rotation or a poorly timed screen in this system leads to a total collapse on the floor. Therefore, the only logical, strategically sound replacement for a core piece like Kai Sotto is someone who already speaks the language of Tim Cohn's system fluently. Enter Japheth Aguilar. When you hear the name Japheth Aguilar, you are hearing the name of a seasoned, battle-tested warrior of Philippine basketball. Japheth is the ultimate plug-and-play solution. Does he stand 7'3"? No. But he brings a vastly different, highly effective toolkit to the floor. Japheth Aguilar possesses elite, world-class athleticism. Even in the later stages of his career, his ability to elevate quickly, his second jump capability, and his lateral quickness are phenomenal. Where Kai Sotto provides drop coverage rim protection through sheer size and length, Japheth provides weak side shot blocking and the ability to aggressively hedge and recover on the perimeter. In Tim Cohn's defensive schemes, Japheth is not going to just stand under the basket and wait for the offense to come to him. He is going to be deployed as a highly mobile disruptor. He has spent years playing under Coach Cohn at Barangay Ginebra San Miguel. He knows exactly where the defensive rotations are supposed to come from. He knows how to communicate through screens. On the offensive end, Japheth is a phenomenal rim runner. While Gilas will miss Kai's low-post scoring and high-post playmaking, they gain a tremendous weapon in transition. Japheth running the floor, catching lobs, and finishing with explosive authority forces opposing big men to sprint back on defense, completely changing the tempo of the game. Furthermore, Japheth has developed a highly reliable mid-range jumper, which allows Gilas to maintain their offensive spacing. He pulls opposing rim protectors away from the basket, opening up driving lanes for the guards, creating a different kind of offensive geometry that Tim Cohn is more than happy to exploit. But Tim Cohn's brilliance does not stop with just plugging in a veteran. He has also layered his contingencies. Behind Japheth Aguilar stands Mason Amos. If Japheth is the veteran bridge, Mason Amos is the glimpse into the bruising future. Amos brings a completely different dimension to the front court. He is a wide-bodied, incredibly strong forward who can anchor his position in the post and refuse to be bullied by the heavier international bigs. But his true superpower in this system is his perimeter shooting. Amos is a lethal threat from beyond the arc. By utilizing Mason Amos as a stretch big, Coach Cohn can run 5-out offensive sets, completely neutralizing the size advantage of teams like Australia by forcing their lumbering centers out to the three-point line. If they refuse to step out, Amos will punish them with three-pointers all night long. If they do step out, the paint is suddenly wide open for C.J. Perez, Scotty Thompson, and Dwight Ramos to slash to the rim without fear of a secondary shot blocker. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the internal elevation of the other front court mainstays. June Mar Fajardo, the most dominant force in the history of the PBA, will be asked to shoulder a heavier load in the low block. The injury to Kai Sotto forces Gilas to maximize Fajardo's minutes efficiently, leaning heavily on his unparalleled strength and soft touch around the rim. And then there is AJ Edu and Carl Tamayo. The absence of Kai is an absolute blessing in disguise for their development. AJ Edu is a defensive savant, a player with incredible defensive instincts and mobility who can switch across multiple positions. Carl Tamayo is a versatile scoring forward who can put the ball on the floor and score from all three levels. With Kai dominating the minutes previously, these players were forced into highly specialized, limited roles. Now, the absolute necessity of the situation thrusts them into the spotlight. They have to play extended minutes against top-tier competition. This forced maturation is exactly what builds the depth required for a deep run in the 2027 World Cup. So, what we are witnessing is not a tragedy, but a highly complex tactical evolution. The real cause of Kai's injury is a systemic warning sign about load management in modern international basketball, a lesson the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas and Kai's management team must take to heart moving forward. But the replacement strategy orchestrated by Tim Cone is a masterclass in coaching psychology and roster management. He refused to let the program devolve into panic. He shut down the noise, protected his players, and empowered the veterans and the young core he had already assembled. He turned a devastating loss into an opportunity to test the true resilience and versatility of the Gilas Pilipinas machine. As we wrap up this massive deep dive, let us take a moment to look at the grand, overarching picture of Philippine basketball. It is entirely natural to feel a sense of profound disappointment right now. When you have a generational talent like Kai Sotto, a player whose entire journey from his high school days at 8 Neo de Manila to the international stage has been chronicled and celebrated by millions, seeing him sidelined is heartbreaking. The road to recovery from an ACL tear is long. It is painful. It requires a level of mental fortitude and solitary grinding in the gym that most people will never understand. There will be months of agonizing physical therapy, of rebuilding muscle mass, of learning to trust the knee again before he ever steps foot on a competitive court. But I want every single Gilas Pilipinas fan watching this to hear this loud and clear. This is not the end of the Kai Sotto era. If anything, this is the crucible that will forge the second, more dominant phase of his career. Coach Tim Cone's assertion that they want him anchoring the team until he is 35 years old is the most encouraging thing we could possibly hear. It means the national program is no longer operating on a tournament-to-tournament survival basis. They are operating with a decade-long vision. When Kai Sotto returns, and he will return, he will be stronger, he will be smarter, and his body will have finally had the time to adapt to the immense, crushing forces of professional basketball. In the meantime, the torch has not been dropped. It has merely been passed to the seasoned hands of Japeth Aguilar and the strong, eager shoulders of the young Gilas core. We are about to see exactly what this team is made of when their biggest safety net is removed. We are going to see Tim Cone's tactical genius stretched to its absolute limits as he devises ways to outsmart, outrun, and outshoot teams that are fundamentally bigger than us. This upcoming stretch of games is going to be an absolute dogfight, and it is going to produce some of the most compelling, high-stakes basketball we have seen from the national squad in years. To Japeth Aguilar, stepping into the void once again, we salute your readiness and your unwavering dedication to the flag. To Mason Amos, AJ Edu, and Carl Tamayo, this is your moment to prove that the future of the Gilas frontcourt is multidimensional and fiercely competitive. And to Kai Sotto, the entire nation wishes you a steady, powerful, and complete recovery. We will be waiting for that triumphant return to the paint. Thank you all so much for sticking with us through this extensive breakdown. If you appreciate this level of deep, analytical coverage of Philippine basketball, where we cut through the noise and give you the real story, you know exactly what to do. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button to help this video reach every basketball fan in the country, and drop down into the comment section. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with Coach Tim Cone's decision to stick with the 14-man pool and rely on Japeth Aguilar? Do you think the grueling schedule of international and club play needs to be reformed to protect our stars? Let's get a massive discussion going down below. Until next time, keep the faith, keep supporting Gilas Pilipinas, and as always, keep watching the game we love. See you in the next video.